In 1978, an African American student movement organized completely on their own and took possession of the park and requested that it be renamed Malcolm X Park and that it be given over and collaboratively owned by the community, not by a private person, not by a municipal authority, but by the people living there. And I think if we look at the entire river as this possibility for a collaborative commons of multiple people, animals, plants coming together and, in a sense, occupying it and owning it and allowing a new sort of future based on mutual collaboration, enjoyment, pleasure, curiosity to emerge from it.
Sustainable environmental components to your society, to your civilization, doesn't mean pristine sort of untouched nature, but rather a relationship with that construction, a relationship with that management, and a deeper understanding of its implications on how you live.
A watershed is the entire system of flows within a drainage basin. So that includes the cycles of evaporation, where the water comes from, and then how it flows into the river, all of the things that affect it, both the human systems like a sewage system or public water works, and also all of the non-human systems, so the diverse creatures that inhabit it and make use of it. So that's a watershed in the broadest sense.
You can't think of the Fallkill as a river by itself. It's really an assemblage of, there's the body of water, there's creatures, there's people, there's institutions, and all of those things make up the Fallkills.
Is to start to grasp water as a material, a network, a distributor of potential, and in a really real sense, water's in us, right, as we drink it, and it becomes part of us.
Class C means that it's pretty bad, that you shouldn't bathe in it, you shouldn't fish from it, and that you have to be cautious with it. So it's quite a serious designation. Well, there's this creature and that creature, but rather what we were really interested in doing is helping people, and ourselves included, form new relationships with all of the creatures that make up the river. We are not just in it, we're of it. And so if we do one set of things, it changes. If it changes, we change. And it's that kind of complicated relationship. And so in a way, it's trying to pay attention to that that's really important.
Our idea was to collaborate with the Poughkeepsie high school students from several different art classes and to bring them onto the river, to have them engage in it through a series of actual physical exercises, which included identifying different plants and animals, creating a foraged dinner, which we then ate at the end. So burdock is really interesting because when it's young, you can eat the leaves, but what's super tasty, we're not going to dig it up because it's too much work, but the burdock root is this giant root underground. It's a big taproot, okay? And you can dig up the taproot. It's really delicious. And we also had two different signage projects. One was to work with a moss graffiti, which is moss that's mixed up in a growth medium. It's very simply made out of water and wheat paste and a type of sugar and buttercream solution that then can be painted right onto surfaces, and it grows into this sort of beautiful verdant green moss. So we asked the students to literally write on the river with a living system, as if they were posing questions and exploring the river system by writing on it, that would then grow into this beautiful moss mats. We also created these biodecomposable signages that asked people to fill out some questions about the Fallkill, to talk about their experiences, their memories, their histories. And then we encouraged them, as we walk the path of the Fallkill River from Malcolm X Park down to Warriors Park, to interview people and ask them the same sort of questions. What were their experiences? What stories had they heard? How had the Fallkill affected them? What would they like to see in the river? What futures do they imagine?
There's a very complex constellation of institutions and participants that have come together over a series of distributed events, over a series of ideas, and over this somewhat defined body of water. But the closer you get to it, the more that definition sort of becomes quite varied in terms of its participants, both the people that live around the Fallkill, the people that help to form the way it makes its way through the landscape, but also the people that are charged to care for it.
We would encourage anyone who's interested in the Fallkill to not just study it in the abstract, to not just read about it online or watch this video, but to actually go out there on a regular basis, get down into the river, test things out, talk to people who know something about it, and engage with it as a physical entity that's going to transform you as you're also changing it and thinking about its history.
How do we re-engage the river? How do we really become part of it? And how do we figure out ways of mattering or becoming dependent on it that would cross that boundary between abstract knowledge and real engagement?
Our suggestion isn't for people to just, okay, stop what you're doing and lead this very aesthetic life where you don't, interact with the water whatsoever, and that's the best way to preserve it, but rather interact with it more. Find ways of fitting into these complex ecological systems. Sometimes waste is just, becomes food for another set of creatures. But that requires a bit of creative thinking on our part and collaboration with all of these non-human beings.
What can people do to make the Fallkills better? How could that be an economic driver? For us, the really big thing is pleasure, to actually enjoy the river, to not see it as something that you're separate from, to connect with it and find ways that you share an interest with it. You get on it, you walk it, you eat from it, you fish from it, you understand that you're part of it. And not to begin with an idea that it needs to be saved because it's a duty, but rather it's an area of curiosity and exploration and enjoyment. And to go from there and to see where it leads you, and not look to experts or not look to solutions, but to actually be part of the world that matters.